Joining us now in Studio B is Uncle B, Blaine Fowler, dual threat analyst, national champion at BYU, all-around good guy, and the best hair in Kaysville, and top 10 hair in the immediate Provo, Utah area.
Is that where you guys are ranking me right now?
Top 10.
Like, is there a chance I can move up with a good Senior Bowl performance, and maybe if I do good in the hair combine, I can move up?
Yes. Your son, Gavin, by the way, was like, did you really say best hair in Kaysville on the show?
I went home and I was like, Gavin, you can't share family secrets if you're going to work down there. He's like, oh, I know, Dad, sorry.
Yeah, well,
So,
Brenda, after the basketball game, was like, I'm so glad you did that.
Brenda was all about sharing the family secrets. But I mean, I was running for best hair in Kaysville for 23 straight years. And I moved to Provo, and the pool of talent was so much bigger. I just hoped to make it into the top 10, but we'll see. I learned something from you guys, though. You guys even know I learn things when I come on. I was always wondering what you do in gymnastics, because you play football and you play basketball, but you compete in gymnastics?
I think you compete.
You don't play gymnastics?
You compete.
What do you do in soccer? Do you play soccer or do you compete in it?
You play.
You play soccer.
You play. So gymnastics, you compete.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
I think playing is the wrong verb.
Because that's something that has bugged me for a long time. I didn't know what to say about gymnastics. Yeah. So, okay, I got that now. See, I learn something every time I come on here.
Blaine, it was great to have you on the show. Thank
you so much.
Wait, where are we going?
Where are we going?
Transition out of that, anchor boy.
Oh, I will. I will do so. We're going to compete to transition out of that difficult scenario. Yeah, fist bump that. What is your expectation this season for BYU basketball, Blaine? The Cougars coming off, understandably, very disappointing loss, sub 200. It's a resume killer in a lot of ways. So what now?
I don't know that my expectations have changed from the beginning of the season, because we talked about it a lot. I still think they're a borderline NCAA team depending on what they do. But I thought that going into the season, and we've talked about that I thought that they had to get 2 wins against St. Mary's and Gonzaga combined from here on out to be able to have a chance to be in there as an at-large.
And they can still do that.
And they can still do that. Now, though, with that loss, when you have a sub-200 loss, and remember, I said that they would likely lose a road game. I was hoping it was against a higher than a sub-200.
Yeah.
Because I think that hurts more. And so now maybe they have to get 3 wins against St. Mary's and Gonzaga. I still think there's a lot to go on in college basketball all around the country right now. Teams are going to suffer injuries. Teams are going to go through slumps. There's still a lot of time left. And so I think there's still a fringe NCAA team, which I thought they were going in. So my expectations haven't changed. And then people, when I tell them that, they say, what are you talking about? This is Final Four talent. You know, the fans out there. And I go, first of all, I don't know if it's Final Four talent yet to be seen. Do I think it's Sweet 16 talent? Yeah, I think it's Sweet 16 talent, but I always felt like that was next year. And so I still think they're on track. Do I get disappointed when they go and struggle to defend consistently on the road? Heck yeah, I do. It's really, really frustrating, because I feel like defense is a mindset and it's effort. Some of it's technique, but you gotta, Coach was in here yesterday, Coach Cleveland, and he talked about staying in a defensive stance through a full shot clock and those kinds of things. That's a mentality. That's saying, I know what I'm supposed to do. Now I'm going to do it for 30 seconds, and I'm going to stay in that. And you know what? I'm going to dig down deep inside myself, and when it's clutch time down the stretch in the game and we have to get a stop, I'm going to be the guy that gets a stop. I need to see more of that in the rest of the season than I do, hey, I'll be the guy that'll take the shot. We got plenty of guys that want to be the guy that's going to take the shot down the stretch, which has resulted in some forced shots. Not just down the stretch, but throughout the game. And I'm not singling out anybody, because the bigs forced shots this last week on the road. So I want to see the guy that says, I will step up and I will get a stop down the stretch that will give us an extra possession, which will maybe even give us a run out and an easy transition bucket that gets us back in a game or extends a lead in the game. That's what I'm looking for most, is that mentality of a defensive stopper. Who's going to do that?
And that guy has been Nick Emery thus far, right?
Yes. Yeah, and they need more than just Nick, though.
Yeah.
They need more than just Nick, because they've really struggled, especially on the road, to get stops in critical times of ball games. They just haven't been able to muster. And it's easier when you're at home, because I think that the home crowd affects defense more than anything else. I mean, you're more comfortable shooting, but when you've got to dig down and get a little bit of energy a couple of times down the floor, when a home crowd is cheering you on, you find a way to defend 10 seconds longer. You find a way to get a hand in the passing lane with just a little bit more effort. And frankly, playing in this league on the road in some of these gyms, there's no energy in the building, period. So you have to generate that energy yourself. You have to generate it within your team when you get in a small gym. It's not hard to get amped up when you're playing at Gonzaga, because even you can feed off the negative energy in that building, but a building with no energy, and this is this group's first time as a group going through on the road in some of these venues where they're like, man, this feels like a scrimmage game. And so they kind of go through the motions up and down the floor. So everything's a learning process this year. I want to see them get better defensively down the stretch. I really do.
What's a bigger deterrent to BYU's goals this season right now? The youth or lack of experience, or the expectations?
I think they both. I think they hurt equally, because these guys in their minds think that they have Final Four talent. And you know what? As a coaching staff, they don't want to say anything to these kids to hold them to a lower standard than that.
Right.
I've talked to Dave Rose about it. And Dave Rose is like, yeah, we know we're young and all that. And he and I talk, and he goes, and you can say that, Blaine, and you want to know what? It is true. But I refuse to admit that with these guys, because they have the talent. And so I've got to hold them accountable that they got to play like a Final Four team. And if he says to them, hey, you're really, really young and we'll be really, really good next year, what? I mean, he knows he can't do that. And so he's got to hold them to that standard. We all have to hold them to that standard. But when they stumble, that's when we go, okay, what do they go back and learn from? I think there's a lot to learn from in this last game about sustained defensive effort. And BYU's getting beat too much on the ball. And so one of the reasons that Yoli and Eric are so high in the league in block shots is because they're getting beat off the ball. Defensive rotations are coming in, and those two are phenomenal help defenders. But as soon as you get into help defense mode, now you're in rotations, and those guards have to drop down, and they've got to defend the backside, and all of that has to happen. It puts you in a bad defensive rebounding position, puts you in a bad defensive position. The longer you can stay in front of the ball, the better you are. And staying in front of the ball isn't all just lateral quickness. It's effort. And so I think that that's the area that they can improve the most on, because it doesn't take skill to have more effort defensively and try to stay in front of the ball. And I think we have plenty of lateral quickness to be able to stay in front of these guards in this league.
Because of expectations and where they are right now, if this current young team does not make the NCAA tournament, then what does that mean for the state of the program overall?
I mean, I think it hurts because it's a little bit of a chink in their mind and in the confidence for this team. But this is a veteran staff. Even though it's not a veteran team, it's a veteran staff. They've taken teams to the NIT, and they've used that as learning opportunity to launch them into the next season. And I think they've got to drive and tell these kids you can get into the NCAA tournament from now until they're not in the NCAA tournament. Then they can shift gears and say, okay, so we're not. So now here's the new goal. But I don't think the new goal goes into place until they're out of it. And you know what? The only time they're out of it is if they don't win the conference tournament. Because that's the one thing we forget about young teams. So I've been back in the A-10 the last couple of Saturdays and had some young teams. Fordham's a really young team. St. Bonaventure, who won the A-10 last year, is really young this year. And I listened to their coaches saying, you know what? We might be in the middle of the pack, but at some point this season, the light bulb's going to go on, and this young group's going to all of a sudden be way better. I hope it's in time for the conference tournament, because these guys are talented enough to win the conference tournament. I think that same thing applies to BYU. If they can also all of a sudden catch fire toward the end of the year and figure out how to defend more effectively, have better shot selection, because right now I think they're trying to figure out who the alpha dog is out there. It should be Mika, but he's not very demonstrative down there, and it's hard for a post player to be that guy. So who's the guy that everybody goes, well, this is the guy that's going to take the shot. He's the first option. This is the second option. I don't think that they know that, and I don't think a coach can dictate it. I think that has to come on the floor from the players. And I think the effort to play D has to come on the floor from the players. So I just hope that between now and the end of the year that light bulb comes on and they catch lightning in a bottle, and maybe we don't worry about whether or not they get 2 wins against the Zags and St. Mary's, that they just go win the conference tournament, because they have the talent to do it.
Because BYU hasn't done it since 2001, I think the belief in that idea is extremely low, whether that's fair or not. And it's probably fair.
It's fair, because Gonzaga owns the tournament.
Yes, and this might be their best team ever, so there's kind of a fear there of, wow, we'd have to go through St. Mary's and Gonzaga likely at that point.
No, you would. You would.
And you're hoping you get St. Mary's at home. I think if BYU doesn't get St. Mary's at home,
they're in the
you've got to win in Vegas.
Then they win the tournament.
Yeah.
So, but they're capable. They have a good enough mix of bigs and to match up with Gonzaga's bigs. they're capable physically, but they're learning every game. And I thought that their defense was making progress, and I thought it took a step back on the road. But that was really one of the few real true road games they had in that kind of quiet kind of a building where
played 3.
they had to manufacture energy and do all of that. And they didn't respond very well. Down the stretch, I thought they took bad shots and had lapses defensively deep in the shot clock. And I think they can learn from that. They're physically capable of competing with anybody in this league. I mean, Gonzaga's really, really good. And they have experience at key positions. And for BYU, they don't have a veteran guy that's done it before that they can all rally around and say, come on, you guys, let's go. And remember, they're playing a completely different type of offense. So Nick Emery was here last year, and the offense that was dominated by Kyle Collinsworth, the point guard with the ball in his hands, breaking down defenses into the perimeter, kicking it out to Nick to do dribble penetration or shoot shots with no post game. It's a completely different mindset. So nobody's done what they're doing right now on this team. So they got to figure it out, and it has to come from within the team. There's only so much a coach can coach before somebody takes the lead and says we're going to do this and we're going to be better defensively. I mean, they're right up there. They're number 2 in the league in scoring offense. Gonzaga's number 1. St. Mary's is number 4. But the big difference is in scoring defense, BYU's 9. And Gonzaga's 1 and St. Mary's is 2.
There you go.
So now you look at scoring margin, and you can look at field goal percentage defense and all that, and BYU looks like they're pretty defense. But scoring margin is the big thing. And they're not doing a good enough job defensively. And teams get a lot of possessions, so it's, the scoring defense, they have to be better in scoring margin. That's partly taking care of the ball, because in turnover margin, they're not good. They're negative. So take care of the ball, get stops down the stretch, value every single solitary possession so you don't force up a shot that doesn't need to be forced up. And that's how you improve down the stretch. They're physically capable of beating anybody in this league, but they got to learn to play together, and they got to have some leadership out there, and they got to play better defense.
Blaine, great stuff, man. We appreciate the time as always.